"I never meant to destroy your life," she whispered, her voice breaking as she stood in his doorway. "I just needed to know the truth." James stared at his boss, the woman who'd asked him that one devastating question the morning after he'd helped her home. The question that had unraveled everything he thought he knew about his late wife, his daughter, and the carefully constructed life he'd built from the ashes of tragedy. Now, 6 months later, he had to decide if he could forgive her for shattering his world, or thank her for finally setting him free. If you've ever had a single moment change the course of your entire life, hit that like button and subscribe to see more stories that explore how truth, no matter how painful, can ultimately lead to healing. Your support helps us bring these powerful human journeys to light. James Mercer checked his watch for the third time in 10 minutes. It was nearly midnight, and the company holiday party had devolved into exactly what he'd feared, a blur of excessive drinking, awkward dancing, and the kind of loose conversation that would make everyone uncomfortable at Monday's staff meeting. As a senior account manager at Horizon Marketing, he'd been obligated to attend. As a single father to 8-year-old Lily, he'd planned to make an appearance and slip out by 10. But when the CEO had announced year-end bonuses and specifically mentioned James's team for bringing in the Peterson account, he'd found himself trapped in congratulations and conversation. Now the hotel ballroom had thinned considerably. The DJ had switched from upbeat holiday tunes to slower songs, and the remaining employees had segregated into small, increasingly intoxicated groups. James collected his coat from the chair where he draped it, nodding goodbyes to a few colleagues as he headed for the exit. "Leaving so soon, Mercer?" The voice stopped him in his tracks. Catherine Wells, his direct supervisor and the company's creative director, stood by the bar, champagne flute in hand. At 42, Catherine was known for her brilliant creative strategies, impeccable style, and the cool professionalism that had earned her both respect and the nickname Ice Queen among some of the staff. Tonight, however, she looked different. Her usual perfectly styled blonde hair was slightly mussed, and the composed expression she maintained during work hours had softened. She'd clearly had more than a few drinks. "I need to relieve my babysitter," James explained, checking his watch again. "It's already later than I promised." Catherine nodded, taking another sip of champagne. "Always the responsible one. That's why you're my best manager." She swayed slightly as she set down her glass. "I should probably head out too." James hesitated. Catherine lived in the same neighborhood as him, an upscale area on the north side of the city. They'd occasionally mentioned this coincidence in passing, but had never discussed it beyond that. Now, looking at her unsteady posture, he felt a twinge of concern. "Are you driving?" he asked. She waved dismissively. "I'll call a car." "I can give you a ride," he offered, surprising himself. "You're on my way." Catherine studied him for a moment, her blue eyes slightly unfocused. "That's very gallant of you, James. Are you sure it's not an imposition?" "Not at all. I'd feel better knowing you got home safely." She smiled, a genuine smile that transformed her usually serious face. "Then I accept. Let me grab my things." 10 minutes later, they were in James's sensible sedan, navigating the quiet streets. Catherine had given him her address, and as he suspected, it was only a few blocks from his own house. "Your daughter," Catherine said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. "Lily, right? How old is she now?" 8, James replied, surprised she remembered his daughter's name. Catherine wasn't known for taking interest in her employees' personal lives. "That's a wonderful age. Still innocent, but starting to become their own person." There was something wistful in her voice that James had never heard before. "It is. Though single parenting has its challenges at any age." Catherine turned to look at him. In the dim light from the dashboard, her expression was unreadable. "How long has it been since your wife passed?" The question caught him off guard. He rarely discussed Claire at work, preferring to keep his grief private. 3 years in February. "I'm sorry. That must be incredibly difficult." "We manage," James said, his standard response whenever anyone expressed sympathy. "Lily is resilient. Children often are. More so than adults, I think." They lapsed into silence again until James pulled up to Catherine's address, a modern townhouse with large windows and a small, meticulously landscaped front garden. "Here we are," he announced, putting the car in park. Catherine made no move to exit. Instead, she stared at her house as if seeing it for the first time. "Would you like to come in for a coffee?" "To thank you for the ride." James tensed. This was exactly the kind of situation he avoided, being alone with a female colleague, especially one who'd been drinking, especially his boss. Office gossip spread faster than wildfire, and he had no interest in becoming its kindling. I appreciate the offer, but I should get home to Lily. The sitter has school tomorrow. Catherine nodded, looking suddenly embarrassed. Of course. I wasn't thinking. She reached for the door handle but fumbled with it. Let me help you to your door, James said, already getting out of the car. The temperature had dropped, and their breath formed small clouds in the December air. Catherine's heels clicked unsteadily on the walkway as James stayed close beside her, ready to catch her if she stumbled. At her door, she dug through her purse for her keys, eventually producing them with a triumphant smile that quickly faded as she tried unsuccessfully to fit the key into the lock. After the third failed attempt, James gently took the keys from her hand. Allow me. Inside, Catherine's home was exactly as he would have imagined it, minimalist, elegant, with carefully chosen artwork and not a thing out of place. It was also, he couldn't help noticing, devoid of personal touches. No family photos, no mementos. Just beautiful, impersonal perfection. Would you mind making sure I get upstairs okay? Catherine asked, her professional demeanor slipping further as fatigue and alcohol took their toll. I'm feeling a bit unsteady. James hesitated again but couldn't in good conscience leave her when she was clearly struggling. He helped her up the stairs, maintaining a respectful distance while staying close enough to prevent a fall. At the top of the stairs, Catherine paused, leaning against the wall. I'm sorry about this, James. Not very professional of me. It's fine. Everyone lets loose sometimes. Not me, she said with surprising bitterness. Never me. Before James could respond, she pushed off from the wall and walked with deliberate care to what appeared to be her bedroom door. I can take it from here, she said, her voice steadier. Thank you for making sure I got home safely. You're welcome. Drink some water before you sleep, he advised. It helps with the morning after. Catherine smiled faintly. Voice of experience? College was a long time ago, but some lessons stick with you. She nodded, then surprised him by asking, will Lily be asleep when you get home? Yes. She's been in bed for hours. You're a good father, James. I see how you structure your work around her needs. How you never miss her events. She paused, something vulnerable crossing her face. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one, he replied automatically, though the words were sincere. Catherine studied him for a long moment. Good night, James. Thank you again. Good night, Catherine. See you Monday. As he drove home, James couldn't shake the feeling that he'd glimpsed something important, a crack in the perfect facade of Catherine Wells that revealed a different person underneath. It was disconcerting, like seeing a familiar landscape suddenly altered by unusual light. He paid the babysitter, checked on Lily, sound asleep with her stuffed elephant clutched to her chest, and tried to put the strange evening out of his mind. The insistent buzzing of his phone woke James the next morning. Bleary-eyed, he fumbled for it on the nightstand, expecting to see his mother's name. She often called early on weekends. Instead, Catherine Wells flashed on the screen. For a moment, he considered not answering. It was Saturday, barely 7 a.m. Whatever work emergency she had could surely wait a few hours. But curiosity won out. Hello? James. Catherine's voice was clear and composed, no trace of last night's intoxication. I apologize for calling so early. It's fine. Is everything okay? A pause. I wanted to thank you for your help last night. It was, not my finest moment. Don't worry about it. It was no trouble. Another pause, longer this time. When Catherine spoke again, her voice had changed, becoming hesitant in a way he'd never heard before. James, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. An inexplicable sense of dread settled in his stomach. Okay. The photograph in your wallet. The one of your wife. May I ask her name? The question was so unexpected that for a moment James couldn't process it. My wife? Her name was Claire. Claire Mercer. Why? The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. When Catherine finally spoke, her words came out in a rush, as if she'd been holding them back with great effort. Was her maiden name Donovan? Claire Elizabeth Donovan? James sat up straight, fully awake now, his heart suddenly pounding. Yes. How did you know that? Catherine's next words came out barely above a whisper. Because I think your wife was my sister. The world seemed to tilt beneath James. That's impossible. Claire didn't have a sister. She was an only child. No, James. She wasn't. 2 hours later, James sat across from Catherine at her dining room table, a folder of documents between them. Lily was still asleep at home, being watched by their elderly neighbor Mrs. Patel, who had agreed to stay until James returned. Catherine looked nothing like the polished executive he knew from work, nor the vulnerable woman from last night. In jeans and a simple sweater, her face free of makeup and her hair pulled back, she seemed both younger and older simultaneously. "I saw the photo when you were helping me upstairs," she explained, her fingers tracing the edge of the folder. "You took out your wallet to check something, the babysitter's number, I think, and I glimpsed it. Even in my state, I recognized her immediately." James shook his head, still struggling to process what she was telling him. "This doesn't make sense. Claire would have told me if she had a sister." "Would she?" Catherine asked quietly. "The Claire I knew was very good at reinventing herself. At leaving the past behind." "What are you saying?" Catherine opened the folder and removed a photograph, sliding it across the table. It showed two young women, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. One was unmistakably Claire, younger, with longer hair, but definitely his wife. The other was equally unmistakably Catherine. "This was taken at my college graduation. Claire was 16. James stared at the photo, his mind racing. "I don't understand. Why would she lie about having a sister?" "Because she didn't just leave home, James. She ran away from it. From all of us." Catherine's voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. "Our father was not a good man. Controlling, manipulative, sometimes violent. Our mother was too afraid to leave him. I escaped to college as soon as I could, but Claire was younger. She had to endure it longer." James felt sick. Claire had told him her parents died in a car accident when she was in college. That she had no family left. It was one of the things that had initially bonded them. His own parents had passed away just after Lily was born. When she was 17, Catherine continued, there was an incident. "Our father, he hurt her badly. I wanted her to press charges, but she refused. Said it would destroy our mother. Instead, she left. Changed her name, she was born Elizabeth Claire Donovan, but started going by Claire. Cut all ties. She never told me any of this," James whispered, his mind reeling with implications. "I tried to find her for years," Catherine said. "Hired private investigators. Searched social media. Nothing. It was as if she'd vanished. Eventually, I had to accept that she didn't want to be found." "But you're Catherine Wells. If your sister was Elizabeth Claire Donovan." "I changed my name too," she admitted. "After our father finally died and our mother followed a year later. I wanted a fresh start, away from the Donovan legacy. I had no idea Claire had settled in this city. Had married. Had a child." Her voice caught. "Had died." James felt as if he were drowning, struggling to reconcile the woman he'd loved and lost with this new narrative. "We met at a coffee shop. She was working as a graphic designer. She told me she was from Chicago." "We grew up in Boston," Catherine said gently. "She never lived in Chicago." "What about her parents? The car accident?" Catherine shook her head. "A fiction. Our father died of a heart attack 6 years ago. Our mother from cancer 2 years after that." James stood abruptly, needing to move, to breathe. He paced Catherine's dining room, running his hands through his hair. "I don't know what to do with this information. What to think. I understand. It's a shock." He turned to her, suddenly angry. "A shock? It's my entire life, Catherine. My marriage. My memories. Everything I thought I knew about the mother of my child." "I'm sorry," she said, and the genuine remorse in her voice deflated his anger somewhat. "I debated whether to tell you. But I thought you deserved to know the truth. And selfishly, I wanted to know about her life. About her final years." James sank back into his chair, exhausted despite the early hour. "Why didn't she tell me? We shared everything. At least, I thought we did." "Some traumas are too painful to revisit," Catherine said softly. "Even with those we love most. And Lily." James's voice broke as a new realization hit him. "Lily has family. An aunt. She's not alone in the world apart from me." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I have a niece I never knew existed. They sat in silence for several minutes, the magnitude of the revelation settling around them like dust after an explosion. Finally, James spoke. I need time to process this. To figure out what to tell Lily. How to integrate this new reality. Of course. Take all the time you need. Catherine hesitated. But James? I'd like to meet her someday. When you're ready. If you're ever ready. He nodded, unable to form words around the lump in his throat. And one more thing, Catherine added, reaching back into the folder. She pulled out a small, worn book with a faded blue cover. This was Claire's, Elizabeth's, diary from when she was 15. I found it after our parents died, when I was clearing out the house. I think you should have it. It might help you understand. James took the diary with trembling hands. Thank you. As he drove home, the diary on the passenger seat felt like a bomb waiting to detonate. How much more would it reveal about the woman he thought he knew? How much more of his life with Claire would be exposed as built on lies? And most importantly, what would he tell Lily?